had an employee who worked for me several years ago who was extremely negative. I mean, this woman was foul. This woman wore her negativity like a badge of honor. She would walk around in the office and look you dead in the eye and say, "You'll never find anybody more negative than me." She was proud. She had that scowl. You know that scowl I'm talking about? That one that's like permanently engraved in someone's face because they've been so bitter and jaded for so long that they literally just exude that everywhere they go. Even when they're smiling, you can still see the bitterness. She was one of those. She's the kind of person they ask to leave the bar at 5 o'clock so they can start happy hour. You know the type of person I'm talking about, don't you? This woman was bitter. She comes running into my office. She's 20 minutes late for work one day. She comes running through the office, and when she busted through the doors, there was a clock right on the door, or right above the door. And that's how I knew she was 20 minutes late for work. She comes running through the office with a great big stack of school books in her hands for some reason. And over in the corner of my office, I had one of those little round conference tables. Well, she comes running through the office. She runs past my desk. She slams the school books down on the table. She flops down in the chair and gives me this great big belly sigh and glares at me like I did something to screw up her day. Now, you have to understand something about me. I am not the type of person who will typically ask somebody that I know, "How you doing?" It's quite frankly, in this negative world, well, I'm afraid they'll tell me. You think about it. You walk up to somebody you see every single day at your office, you look them straight in the eye and you say, "Good morning, how are you?" And they look at you and say, "Oh, you hadn't heard?" I thought everybody had heard by now. And then they proceed to tell you all the crud that's going on in their life, and you're thinking to yourself, "I didn't even want to know this. I was just trying to get to the coffee pot. And now I have to sit and listen to all this nonsense?" Yes. And you know why? Because it's your fault. You asked the wrong question. If you don't get anything else from my program today, get this. If you don't want to know how somebody is doing, don't ask. But we do, don't we? We do it over and over. I fell into that trap more times than I care to count. At some point in my life, I said to myself, I'm tired of falling in that trap. I need some way to stop falling in that trap. I need to stop asking people, "How are you doing?" and figure out a better way to start a conversation. And so many years ago, I finally figured it out. I stopped asking people how they were doing, and I started throwing out one simple phrase, and that simple phrase is this: "Tell me something good." I will walk right up to somebody I see every single day. I will throw my hand out and say, "Tell me something good." And you would be amazed how that one simple comment can change not just that conversation, but how it can change the culture of an entire organization. When you say, "We are going to first focus on what works well, and then we will focus on our challenges." This is not about rose-colored glasses thinking. This is not about let's ignore the bad stuff and just focus on the good. This is about saying we're going to start out focused on the good stuff. It can change a culture if you will allow it to change a culture. Last year I spoke at a conference in Salt Lake City. I had returned to an organization I hadn't spoken to for 7 years. I got a call from the CEO of the company. He said, "Clint, we've been asking our employees if we were to bring back a speaker from the past, which one would they want? And your name keeps coming up. Can you come speak at our conference?" So I went back 7 years later. I walked into the hotel lobby. I was walking up to the front desk to check in, and I looked over in the corner of the lobby. I saw this lady just standing there staring at me. I walked up to the corner, and I was checking in, and I looked over my corner, and there she was just standing there staring at me. And the guy says, "Okay, you're all good to go. You're in room whatever. Now, you're going to go down here to your left, and you'll find the elevator bank." I said, "Oh, good," because I didn't want to go that way. That lady's kind of freaking me out a little bit. So I signed the deal, and I handed it, and I turned to walk toward the elevator, and I looked over my shoulder, and here she came. She was walking straight at me. I said, "I just have to deal with whatever this is." So I stopped. I turned around, and I waited till she got right there. I said, "Yes, ma'am. What can I do for you?" And she looked at me and said, "Tell me something good." She said, "I don't remember your name. I don't remember anything else you said, but I remember, tell me something good." She said, "You know, actually, That's not true. I do remember one other thing you said. I remember that you challenged us to go back to our work environment, and every time we led a meeting, you wanted us to, and challenged us to go around the room and have everyone around that table share one good thing since the last time we came together. And she said, so I did that. I went back to my group. She said, I'm the CFO of the company. We have 7 people that work in my department. And she said, I got back, and this was a management conference, and so none of those employees were there. So I got back, and I started my meeting at the top of the conference table there. I said, we learned a lot of stuff. We're going to be sharing all these new ideas with you. She said, but one of the things that I learned from just tell me something good guy, and here's what we're going to do. At every one of these meetings, we're going to go around the table, and everybody here is going to share one good thing that happened to them since the last time we came together. And we're going to start right here with you. Okay, you ready? Go. Tell me something good. And she said, he looked at me and went, ooh. 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 He said, you know, you're going to have to come back to me. I can't think of anything. So I went on to the next one, and he said, she looked at me and said, I can tell you you're going to have to go on to the next one because I can't think of a thing. She said, Clint, it took us 45 minutes for 7 people to come up with one good thing that had happened in their life. She said, but Clint, that was a magical moment for me because it became apparent to me at that moment that I had created a culture with employees that focused so much on what was wrong that they could not see what was right. They could not see the good because we had worked so hard at fixing problems and I hadn't done anything to elevate the culture above that. She said the good news is, yesterday before I got on a plane to come to this meeting, she said we had our staff meeting again. I still have 7 employees, the same 7. And she said we went around the table. And we haven't missed a meeting in 7 years where we haven't gone around that table and shared one good thing. And the good news is, yesterday before I left when we did it, she said, Clint, it takes us now 45 seconds, not 45 minutes. She said it's adjusted our culture to get people to focus on what's working well in their lives. It can change cultures if you give it a chance. So this employee comes running into my office. She's 20 minutes late for work. She's got this great big stack of school books in her hands. She comes running through my office. She slams the school books down on the conference table. She flops down in the chair and gives me this great big belly sigh and glares at me. I wheeled around in my chair, put a great big smile on my face and said, tell me something good. She said, oh, shut up. She said, there ain't nothing good. I said, nothing? She said, nothing. She said, my husband and I got in a fight last night. The electricity at my house went off, so my alarm didn't go off this morning. So I got up late. So I'm running around late trying to get myself ready for work. Now, my husband would normally take our daughter to daycare. But on this particular day, since we had been in a fight the night before, he was being his little knucklehead self like he normally is when we're in a fight, and he decides to not take our daughter to daycare. So here I am running around late trying to get myself ready for work. Now I have to stop and get my daughter ready for daycare. I finally get myself ready, and now I've got my daughter ready. I get her scooped up, get her in the car. We go off to the daycare, and right out in front of the daycare is a great big wreck. Now, I don't know how people get in a wreck going 20 miles an hour, but apparently they do. So I have to sit and wait for them to move the wreck out of the way. They finally get the wreck moved out of the way. I finally make my way in here to work, and the first thing I have to look at is you looking at me saying, tell me something good. She said, there ain't nothing good. I said, wow. I said, all that bad stuff happened to you just this morning? And she said, yes, it did, and I have a question for you. Why is it that all the bad stuff in the world seems to happen to me? And none of it ever seems to happen to you. Do you know people like that? People who walk around assuming that this dark cloud just follows them wherever they go and that no one else experiences heartache or troubles, that their lives are sunshine and daisies, and that one person is the only one that all the bad stuff happens to me. You know those people? Yeah, she was one of those people. I looked at her and I said, no, I'm curious. Why is it that you think that all the bad stuff happens to you and that none of it ever happens to me? She said, because I've never seen you show up to work in a bad mood. How many of you know people show up to work in a bad mood? I looked at this employee and I said, you've never seen me show up to work in a bad mood, because I can think of 12 good reasons why I should be in a good mood long before I ever even get to work. I said, number one, I wake up. Small detail. Vital to starting a good day. Never started a good day without that one little detail. But how many people do you know waking up and starting a new day is the first challenge of their day? Alarm goes off and they go, oh, I got to get up. I got to go to work. Got to go be with those people. Whatever their problem is. It's amazing to me. I travel for a living. Just about every week of the year I'm on an airplane going somewhere, speaking at a conference just like this. And it's amazing to me whenever they talk about the possibility of additional terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, they always say it's going to be wherever there's a large congregation of people. I travel for a living, and so I'm in those places every single week, in large convention centers, large hotels, large airplanes, large airports. I'm in those places every week, but I love doing what I do for a living, and the last thing in the world I'm going to do is stop doing it. I believe I'm doing what I was put down here to do, and I'm going to do that regardless of any kind of a threat. But this much I know. I put myself in harm's way because I do that, but I've never been inside of an Al-Qaeda cave. But I would imagine that inside those caves, they probably have maps of like their next big targets. And I'm guessing without question, there's not a single Al-Qaeda cave anywhere in the world that has a map on the wall that's got Bull Verde, Texas as a target. It would probably be safer if I just stayed home and stayed away from all that, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm going to go do it. But you know, as we live our lives and as we get older, we start to see people pass on. We start to lose family members and friends, and we realize, oh so clearly, that we truly are here for just a whisper of time. And I realize that as I get older, and as a result, every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is go, woohoo! I got another day. I better bounce out of this bed, go make something big happen. I don't know how many more of these I'm going to get. So I better bounce up and go make something big happen. So the first thing I do when I wake up is go, woohoo! I mean, like I don't actually go, woohoo! But it'd be a little annoying to my wife, wouldn't it? Woohoo! He's awake again. So I mean, I don't actually do that, but in my head I'm going, woohoo! I hear my alarm go off, so I know I still have the gift of hearing. I look around the room with two good eyes, so I know I still have the gift of sight. I get out of a warm bed. I get up on two good healthy legs. I walk into a shower. I get out. I put on clean clothes. I go into a kitchen and I eat a good breakfast. I leave a house with a roof over the top. I get into a truck that I own and I drive safely to a job that pays me to do what I love to do for a living. I looked at this employee and I said, now how can I show up here in a bad mood? I said, it doesn't mean that the bad stuff that happened to you this morning didn't happen to me. I said, we live on the same side of town, so if your electricity went out, mine probably went out, which means I was running around late, probably burned my toast, probably had some moron pull out in front of me on the way to work, probably had the train stop on the tracks. All those tragedies that happened to you, those things happened to me too. The only difference is I stayed focused on what matters. All the stuff worthy of our attention. If I raced out of this room right now and I got to the people who know you best and I asked them, when life throws you those daily challenges, where do you spend your time? Do you focus on that which didn't work well and wallow around in that and tell everyone on the globe who will stand still long enough to hear about those woes? Or do you put those in their proper place and say, I'm so blessed there's no way in the world I'm going to let those things bother me? What would they tell me about you? Would they tell me that you wallow around in it? Or would they smile and say, oh no, that person that you just described is one of the top 29%, and it's hard to be a top 29%er when you're bogged down in that crud. You want to be a better leader of yourself? so that you can bring better engagement, not just to yourself, but to all of those in your district, to all of those around you, I believe you need to stay focused on what matters.